Hello, everyone. This is the Danger Club. I am the Dungeon Master, and I'm joined today by a very special guest to talk about something very, very exciting indeed. I'm joined here today by Adam Bradford, who is the CDO of Demiplane, and he is one of the minds behind Pathfinder Nexus, which is a very exciting thing that's been announced just very recently. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. It's a fun project to get to talk about. So before we dive into Nexus itself, Adam, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Sort of, what's your background in gaming? How do you get into developing something like this?
Yeah, so I am Adam Bradford, and I was born on a cold April. No, we won't start that far back, but yeah, I spent, after I graduated college, I was like so many people out there, not quite sure how this life was going to end up. And I ended up eventually falling into the defense and aerospace industry because I am from Huntsville, Alabama. This is a very authentic Alabama accent going on right here. And it is called the Rocket City. So we have a strong NASA presence and all of that. And so I worked for a company for about 10 years that did electronic manufacturing for that. And the reason I'm starting there is because I got the opportunity to really work on pretty much every part of the business while I was, there doing that job. And so I got to see from supply chain to manufacturing to quality control, just every department really in my 10 years there. And, so it was kind of like I started looking myself in the mirror and saying, hey, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Because it was great work, but it wasn't the most exciting job that someone could be working. And around that time, a video gaming related company called Curse moved into my backyard. So they had an office in San Francisco. They moved into Huntsville here. And I just kept, saying to myself, "Hey, I owe it to myself to try to see if I can go and do something more exciting." So I kind of cold called them up and said, "Hey, I want to work for you." Pretty quickly after that, got in and got hired by Curse. And I was actually working on some video gaming related things. And at the time, the company was looking for ways to try to get out of media sales because ad block is just killing, websites that are dependent on that for revenue. And I said, "Hey, have you ever played tabletop role-playing games? Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons? Have you heard of this Pathfinder thing?" And so that discussion led to the creation of D&D Beyond. And so in my time there, co-founded D&D Beyond and really started to see how digital can impact this gaming experience. And, having played these games for, I guess at that time, 25 plus years before I did that, it was this beautiful fusion for me of the thing that I love the most in the world, playing tabletop role-playing games. And I somehow just kind of lucked into this opportunity to make that into a job as well. And so, from there, spent several years. We got acquired by Twitch and had Amazon as a grandparent company, and then got acquired by Fandom eventually there. And throughout that, eventually became the vice president of tabletop gaming, which was a lovely made-up title there at Fandom. And I just started kind of getting a little itchy to get a little bit back to the kind of the core of the work itself, because it's like that corporate journey that you normally go on where you get promoted and then you're kind of promoted to the point of uselessness sometimes. Yeah. And I started feeling that to some degree, and before it got too bad, I wanted to move on. And so I found Travis and Peter, who are the founders of Demiplane, and we hit it off right away. I loved what Demiplane was doing. I loved their mission statement to make every part of playing tabletop role-playing games better. And so I knew that, hey, we could form a Voltron there and really make some waves here in the industry. And really, so much of what we are currently doing, and with this announcement with Pathfinder Nexus, is we believe really strongly that other games outside of Dungeons and Dragons are, first of all, great. There are some wonderful games out there, and then second of all, they deserve nice things. And so that's really what has kind of taken us to this point in the journey.
Fantastic. So, because Demiplane is a lot of people who are Pathfinder players will have heard about Demiplane for the first time with this announcement, I imagine. But Demiplane's been around for a while. Like you've been making.
Well, it's been around since 2020 only. Okay. So it may seem like it's been around a little bit longer than that. Been here since 2020. And, Travis was off playing in the NFL and becoming Pro Bowlers, for several years. He decided to retire from the NFL, and Peter was off traveling the world, wheeling and dealing, selling companies. So they have very interesting backgrounds themselves. And they decided, since they had played these games for decades as well, that they wanted their next gig to be something that was working in this space. And so, I think that they made that pretty big leap from those very successful careers into doing something with this. And so, yeah, it's only been around since 2020, but it really started as, matchmaking, looking for group, trying to connect people to play these games, because we do believe that the world would be a better place if everyone in it played tabletop role-playing games. I genuinely, it might sound cliche or trite, but I genuinely believe that if everyone played these games, the world's problems would melt away, because it's like the things that you learn playing these games, the things that you experience, they teach us to cooperate with other people. And so I think that, for Demiplane, it always has been keeping our eyes open for opportunities to make the game, and we're saying like capital G there, the universal game out there, to make that game better in any way that we can. And that path most recently has led us into this concept of creating digital tool sets for, a game like Pathfinder that hasn't had that level of support in the past.
So let's talk about the product itself. What is Pathfinder Nexus for somebody who is totally new to it? What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, Pathfinder Nexus is the official digital tool set for Pathfinder, starting with second edition. We don't have current plans for first edition, but we're hearing some people shouting from the rooftops that they might want to see that eventually. But yeah, so Pathfinder 2E, the official digital tool set. And so in my past life with Dungeons and Dragons, I really got to see that, there's some great virtual tabletops out there. And Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds, I know, all the people who are, kind of driving those products forward. And I personally have played with virtual tabletops much in my past and in my life. But one of the things that I got to see with D&D Beyond was that there are so many people that are looking for some other bits of functionality that aren't just the virtual tabletop part, the maps, the tokens, all of that. And so, as we started looking at that, we said, hey, for Dungeons and Dragons, character management is the cornerstone of what's going on with D&D Beyond. And again, as we look at a game like Pathfinder, we wanted to make sure that we were getting the this highly polished experience for the character management that can hopefully sit alongside those virtual tabletops And so for Pathfinder Nexus, the features that we're targeting is we do have the game discoverability. So you can go in, you can find people playing Pathfinder games, you can find people playing 180 other systems that we have on the platform, and so people are meeting groups, they're getting together, they're playing these games. We have voice and video chat that can kind of take the place of Zoom or Discord for many groups out there, and really the intent behind that is we ask ourselves the question, Zoom and Discord, they have a specific focus for what they're trying to do, and that's not tabletop role playing. And obviously for those companies, that is perfectly fine. They're okay with that. But we just asked the question, what would it look like to have that kind of solution that was purpose built for tabletop role playing games? And so that is where Demiplane really has started. And so all of that is available and possible today. But then as we're starting to layer in the other pieces of Pathfinder Nexus, that will be a digital reader. So this is a way that you can go in and read all of the content. It's the same content that you're going to find in a PDF, but it is organized in a different way that I've seen in the past really pops when people are going to look up things, being able to have a global search, because I can't stand Adobe's Control F search tools inside of PDF. So you have this really high quality search, but then you also have kind of enhanced text. So you can have tooltips where if there's a spell, you can hover over it and see a little snippet of what that spell is. You can click on that and deep dive and get all the details pulled up in a sidebar. So those are all things that are going to happen in this digital reader. We're really excited about annotations that are going to happen in this. So, how many times have you been running an adventure, you change an NPC's name possibly accidentally, and then you do your best to try to remember that NPC's name is changed. And so all of that, you can go with these annotations, you can go and make a note in the margin, very similar to a Google Doc. So all of that's coming together as one of the big first features that we're working on right now, which is the digital reader. And then we're going to move into what we call compendium listings. So this is the concept that you can go look up spells, creatures, items, classes, ancestries, all of those things. You will be able to go to this single place. And what I love about this, is these advanced filters. So if you're wanting to look at a very specific suite of traits that you're trying for whatever reason, because of an enemy that you're in combat with, whatever that is, you can find that quickly and easily in these compendium listings. And then I think my favorite part of that is, Pathfinder, one of the best things about this game is the character options are just nearly limitless. Like they just keep coming with more and more creation options and gameplay options. And when you are playing a barbarian, there are options for a barbarian in the advanced player's guide, but then there are going to be options for the barbarian in all these other supplements that Paizo is going to continue to publish over these years. Mm-hmm. And so when you are going and trying to find information about the barbarian, what we are going to do here is we're going to aggregate all that into a single place. So it's going to be a way that you can go and look at every single thing that's going on with that barbarian there in what we call a class primer. So all of that is coming together in the compendium listings piece. So that will be the next major feature that we introduced during our early access period. And then finally, character management. And we know that this is the cornerstone of our initial offering with Pathfinder Nexus. And we know it's important because I often ask this question of, can you play any of these tabletop role-playing games without a map? Can you play them without miniatures? Can you play the list could go on and on. And the answer comes back to that. Yes, you can play without those things. But then when you ask the question, can you play these games without a character? The answer is naturally no. And so characters are at the heart of everything that happens in tabletop role-playing games. People get connected to these characters. I spent an embarrassing amount of time on the World of Warcraft Armory back when I played WoW, just staring at the imaginary, well, not imaginary pixels, but the imaginary character represented by those very real pixels. And so it was, we connect to characters. And so we know that character builder, this interactive digital character sheet, those are ways that, especially in my former life, I saw people loved to further engage and connect with their characters in that way. And so this character management piece will kind of finalize and round out this early access period for us. And once we get to a place where we are happy with that from the community feedback, that's when we will put a stamp on this and fully launch Pathfinder Nexus. But I will also emphasize that this is a multi-year licensing agreement. We have many plans beyond that. Naturally, once we get character management, a place where we are really helping people play out there, we are going to start looking at encounter management and challenge management, all the other pieces of the game. So very extensive roadmap that we have. But really, Pathfinder Nexus, the Too Long Didn't Read version, is the official digital tool set for Pathfinder, and it is looking to provide high quality tools that maybe fill some of the gaps out there, or even if there aren't gaps, it's bringing a lot of that functionality into one place where you're not having to use 5 different website tabs to do the things that you want to be able to use while you're playing.
I see that. It's one of the things that I think a lot of people were surprised when second edition launched that it didn't. It was the most common thing, as people are saying, why isn't there a D&D Beyond for this game? It's especially a game where almost every number on your sheet goes up every level, and where the bonuses that you're rolling are huge. It can be quite hard to play this game without a dice roller if you're not great at math.
It is, and this is in no way a knock on what Pathfinder has going for it, but I have tried to play and run so many Pathfinder games since second edition launched, and there is always a hesitance with the groups that I try to play with, because they do ask me questions like, is there a D&D Beyond for this? And I know that I probably have a pretty biased sample size there, but still that inability to have that for a game that is so option rich. It is almost overwhelming when you think about it in the ways of, again, for that barbarian, I could potentially look across, 5, 10 different books to try to find out what my options are when I'm creating that character. And so, yes, I have wanted to see something like Pathfinder Nexus spring into existence for literally years at this point. And that was even before second edition. But then as second edition came out, I think second edition has so many great things going for it. And I think that something like Pathfinder Nexus is going to open this up for an entirely new group of fans. And obviously we don't want to lose sight of the fans that have made Pathfinder what it is already. And so we're doing our best to cater to longtime veterans, but also welcome some beginners into the fold here, where this game can continue to grow and really continue to thrive. And so it's and kind of to the comment of why didn't it happen when second edition launched. Having been, one of the few people that have tried to do something like this for one of these games in the past, I can say it's a lot harder than it might seem. It really is. There's so many challenges to making something like this happen. I think there's a reason when you look at the history of tabletop role-playing games and you see so many false starts and failed attempts to bring something like a digital tool set to fruition. All the news stories that we've seen over the last couple of decades, even, I remember Master Tools CD in the back of a player's handbook, so many attempts at this. It really is, harder than it might seem like it is to pull something like this off. And I think a lot of that comes down to even AAA game studios out there that are making Skyrims and all the other games. I guess, wow, that's very dated at this point. I don't even know a more recent game to use, but making those games, they can code things that there's an edge of the map. Like they have boundaries that they're working, even something as huge as Skyrim. But when it comes to tabletop role-playing games, the sky really is the limit, and there's no edge to the map, and you have to try to allow for customization. Some of the biggest challenges that I've had in the past life was how do you allow for the limitless imagination of players that are playing. And this is one of the things that we're really excited about with Pathfinder Nexus. Is hindsight is 2020 in a lot of places, and we can learn from what has happened before and do our best to try to cover as much of that spread as possible to help make these games as customizable and as free as we possibly can.
What do you reckon? What would you say some of the biggest lessons that you'd taken from doing D&D Beyond to a project like this? Are there things you're going to do differently this time, or what's the experience of that?
Yeah, the tongue-in-cheek version of that is, we will consider dark mode from the outset, but yeah, that became quite a joke in my final days there. Seriously, we are considering dark mode from the beginning here. But I think that there are just so many benefits to being. To following something, especially something that breaks through and has some level of success from the standpoint of it resonates with a fan base. It helps people do what you're trying, solve the problems you're trying to solve. And so, I really think about something like EverQuest. EverQuest was such an incredible game as it came along, and of course, it was standing on the shoulders of some giants itself. But then, by the time World of Warcraft came out, wow, they had such a benefit of hindsight of what worked in EverQuest, what didn't. And I think that led to this huge smashing success that they ended up having there at Blizzard. And so I think that for us, as we're looking at this, one of the biggest lessons is what I was just referring to. We understand that, at a minimum, there's got to be a way to customize every single thing on your sheet. And so if we do not have the automation or the calculations in place to handle something in the game, we can't have a closed system. We have to have an open system that will, at a minimum, let people adjust it manually and for that to work there. And so that's one of the key concepts that we're taking with us here. There's also one of the biggest philosophies behind making something like this work. And I think, the former life, we did it, pretty well, but there are some ways to improve there, which is, what information is important to have at a glance versus what information needs to be tucked a click or two away. And so, that's kind of the big thing for us here is we've given that so much thought. There are months and months of conceptualizing what we're doing before we even got into an announcement or got into the development that we're currently in here with Pathfinder Nexus. And so those are really driving concepts that are informing the development and being able to see, what works and what doesn't in the former life definitely is contributing to, I think, some quicker concept phases, but also being able to just bypass the focus group section of that, the playtest group section of that in some places is going to be important. But I'll also highlight that none of the successful games in the TRPG space now are successful without an enormous amount of playtesting. And so we have these opinions, we have these gut feels, we have this these data points from something like a D&D Beyond, but we also know that Pathfinder is a different game. It is another community. Sometimes there's overlap there, of course, but it is another community. And our goal is going to be to make Pathfinder Nexus the most useful thing that it can possibly be for, Pathfinder players and fans. And so we're going to really keep an eye on the community feedback. It is the heartbeat of what we're making, because if we're not making something that actually resonates, then what are we here for?
I think so. Talking about kind of the model of it, so from what I get, like Demiplane itself the platform is effectively free, isn't it? You can just log onto the platform and then you buy books in order to be able to access the content in it. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. So, ultimately, right, wrong, or indifferent, as this industry has grown and matured over the years, there has been, there's been a messy path in some places to how monetization has to work, how companies can keep the lights on, all of that. And so I think that, what we are trying to do with Pathfinder Nexus is we understand that there is some precedence that has been established out there from digital partners for, the world's biggest role-playing game, in addition to some of the other prominent games out there. And so, we really are trying to follow that precedence, but then do everything we can to be a little better than that. And so, one of the places where I am really, really excited, especially with our relationship with Paizo, is this concept of Paizo Connect, and the ability that gives us to, if you're buying a book on Paizo.com, then you are going to unlock the PDF as part of that. And so as long as you own the PDF on Paizo.com, when you come to Demiplane and Pathfinder Nexus to unlock the content there, then you are going to get a deep discount. So, these books are typically, there'll be some differences here, because Paizo has some differences in their Lost Omens content versus rulebook content, but, typically $29.99. And if you have that PDF for that previously purchased content that you have over there, you're able to get that for $19.99. And that is the model. We will in the future introduce, for flexibility purposes, the concept that, hey, I'm a player and all I ever play is barbarians. I love barbarians, and I'm going to sit down at the table, and I want to use content out of, I started to make up a book title, but then people would think I was spilling some kind of beans, so we won't do that. But I want to use content in Guns and Gears, and I'm trying to remember right now if they have barbarian content. I'm sure they do somewhere in there. But either way, if I'm trying to use character options from that, then I can unlock just that component for what I want to use there. And so, I remember in the former life, when that concept of component purchases was introduced, people immediately had a reaction to microtransactions, and, oh, this is a bad thing for this game. And genuinely, the way that we saw that play out there was, no, it's not a microtransaction. It's not paying to win. It's not it's not any of those things that we see in video games. It is offered as flexibility, because if we didn't have those component purchases and someone wanted to play that barbarian content in whatever that source in that book is, then instead of paying $29.99 or $19.99 if they have the PDF, they can pay $3.99, and they can move on, and they can have an entry point that is much more convenient and accessible for them there. And so that's the intent behind that. We will introduce that as we go forward. I think one of the biggest challenges that we currently have is there is a double-edged sword between making early access available and starting to get feedback as we need it as we go through this process, and what the actual full product is going to be. And so what you see today on Pathfinder Nexus in our last development update stream went into some detail around, hey, one of the biggest challenges that we knew going into our announcement a couple of weeks ago was trying to specify that it was just an announcement and not a launch. And so, Pathfinder Nexus is in no way in its final form. It's incredibly early, in fact. And so right now, I think that there are some challenges with saying, hey, we're pre-ordering this content. And there's a little bit of the value proposition of it doesn't feel like I'm getting enough for that. And that's not what this product is going to be. We are going to see all of these tools, start to come to life. And once that's there, then I think that value of what that actually is bringing to the table is going to be really, really clear. And so we're going to try to supply as much flexibility in those purchase and unlock options as we can. But in general, if you want access to all of that book's content throughout the entire tool set, then you'll pay that kind of one-time unlock fee.
Okay. And who has to own the book? Like if because I'm a GM, if I want to run a campaign and I have a new player to me, can I say, oh, you want to play a gunslinger? Well, I've got guns and gears. While you're playing in my campaign, you can play the gunslinger, but you couldn't take it to another one. Is that the idea?
100%. So content sharing is something that is an absolute must. We don't have it at this stage because again, just starting out here, but want everyone to know that simulating the idea that we have a group of 6 people who are coming together around a table. And I remember coming up through the early days of playing these games, I always ran the games, but I was not incredibly well off growing up. And so we'll say I cast charm person spells very regularly to talk someone else into buying those books. But, typically groups have 1 person, 2 people that pick up the books and they bring them and they pile them on the table and everyone can use those. And so from a digital standpoint, we're going to be simulating that for sure. And, we see this with most of the digital platforms out there. It will be no different for Pathfinder Nexus. So yes, you will be able to unlock content and you will be able, I'm not going to say that it's going to be campaign based because speaking of, learning from the past life, I think that we maybe painted ourselves into some corners with saying, hey, join my campaign, but there will be a way to group and have people, essentially at your virtual digital table here. And as you are grouped in that way, you'll be able to share that content. And we'll introduce that a little later in early access.
Are we going to get some, sticking with me being a greedy GM, are we going to get some GM tools along with this? What are we going to get to sort of help us run games for our players?
Yeah, that is an excellent question, and it is a little too early for me to go into too much detail on that. But what I can say is there is absolutely intent to do that. It is on the roadmap, and we are focusing again initially on the character management piece, because we do know that when you're looking at the universe and population of players out there, there are more players than game masters, right? Yeah. Now, trust me, I game master and play a lot of games these days. I live a very, very wonderful life that I get to play as much as I do. But, as I'm thinking about that, we understand that if we can get players really, really engaged with what's going on here, that also makes that game master's life easier just from having players that know what their spells do, because they can click on it very quick. So we are, I don't want this to sound, again, just kind of on the nose or whatever, but we are trying to help game masters by helping the players, kind of in this initial piece of this. But we definitely understand that once we get to a place where we've fully launched with character management, the next pieces of the roadmap are going to start jumping into challenge management and encounter management and things that are going to help game masters run games and make that as streamlined as we possibly can.
Do you see a full virtual tabletop as being a thing that you'd like to do in the future? Is that part of the probably a long way off, but is that part of the plan?
I don't, it's a never say never situation for sure. But what I can say is we don't have current plans to create a VTT. And I think that, our general stance on that is that there are literally hundreds of VTTs. I think that if I really wanted to make a list, I think it would be, multiple hundreds of VTTs that we've seen, popping up in the last several years. And so it is a very crowded space. And I think that, truthfully, when you have something that is that fragmented, none of them are doing everything that I want to play, and that's not a knock on anybody making virtual tabletop, content. But I think that for us, what we would prefer to do here is, again, really take that liquid approach and fill the gaps, and do a really strong job of kind of being able to be a foundation of that, and then whatever you have, you can then take that into the virtual tabletops that work best for you, that you prefer. Because, if we went out there and polled people right now of, what's your favorite VTT, the answers would be amazingly diverse, right? At this stage. And so I think that, we have some favorites that are doing some great work out there. It would not surprise me at all. This is, not confirmation, because we're just not at the point where I even can confirm this, but we have some. It wouldn't surprise me if we ended up integrating in some ways with existing virtual tabletops in the future. But I also will say that our prevailing goal and mission is to make every part of the game better. And if we get to a point in this roadmap to where it makes sense for us to take that kind of approach and go in that direction, then we certainly would not shy away from it. We just think that we have some other priorities that we want to work on at this stage that we think will have a deeper and broader impact in what's going on in player base.
Sounds sensible. There are some great integrations between D&D Beyond and Roll20, and there are things that can link them up. So I can see how that's sort of a bridge to that. Well,
absolutely. And I'll call out real quick, Foundry VTT. There is a large population of Pathfinder players who are using it. Of course, it makes the most sense in the world for us to, figure out integration opportunities with that, and those are all things that we're going to be very, very open to, and very on top of figuring out what are the best, most efficient ways that people can, play their games and have fun around the table.
So, what is we've had the announcement. What is available right now for Pathfinder Nexus, and when is the rest of it going to be available if people want to get involved?
Yeah. And so I, somewhat, internet famously at this point don't give out dates. And so we're not going to give out dates here today. But what I will say, what is available right now is the starting point of our digital reader. And so this is where if you pre-order today, you're going to get early access to this stuff. And as things are added, you're going to continue to see, all of that unlock if you've pre-ordered the content. We also have a free Pathfinder primer that we worked with Paizo to provide everything that you need to play, almost a basic rules kind of concept with the Pathfinder primer. So you can check that out for free as well. But the digital reader is the starting point, and all of this is going to take this stair-step approach, because genuinely, this is how we have to do it to get to the character builder and the digital character sheet. And so we start with the book content itself. And so we've got to digitize that. We've got to take that from InDesign files and turn it into what is going to display on a web page, HTML and React and all of those things, right? And so all of that is, part of the digital reader that is available now in its starting point. In, we're talking, weeks, possibly days here. We're going to start seeing, tooltips be added to that content that's in that digital reader. We're going to then after that start seeing the second major phase of early access, which is the compendium listings that I talked about earlier, which are, spells, magic items, creatures, all of those things coming together there, the classes, ancestries, archetypes, all of those pieces will start coming in that filterable, searchable format. So that's kind of the major next stage. And we've got to do that with the data in order to then get to that final stage, which is the character builder and the digital character sheet. And so, we did say in the trailer and the announcement, this winter. And so, that is about the best timeline that I can give. That, our current targets are all about, at a minimum, introducing those different components, essentially by Q1 of next year. And so those are the things that we're going to see play out in the next few months. And again, this is all very dependent on community feedback too, though, because we understand it is incredibly important to get this stuff right. And so if we get to a point where we introduce something into early access and it is not resonating, it is not doing the job and solving the problems, then we're going to listen to that feedback and we will make adjustments. And so, I think that, again, we've got a great team that is very used to how this went for another game like D&D, but also plays a lot of Pathfinder. And so I think that we will be able to provide a pretty good starting point before that feedback. But at the end of the day, we've got to validate that it is doing what it needs to do. And we're going to take all the time that we need to make sure that that's the case. If we put this stuff out and it's doing the job, then we're going to, move pretty rapidly to the next pieces and continue to cover as much ground as we can.
Oh, very exciting. Can anyone get, obviously we're based here in the UK. Is it open to us as well? Can we pre-order stuff now or do we have to hold off and wait?
That is an excellent question. And this is one, again, I won't quite give a date, but international payments, I'm very transparent with this stuff. We got thrown a little bit of a curveball on that just days before we were, ready to announce and get that out. And so we do not currently have, we can't currently accept pre-orders outside of the US and Canada, but I think if we had this interview, next week or the week after that, I would be saying affirmatively, yes, we'll be able to do that. So we will share that on all of our platforms when that is available. But that's going to come very, very early in early access.
Fantastic. That's good to know. Adam, we're about out of time. Where do people go if they want to get on board with this?
Yeah, so PathfinderNexus.com. That one's pretty straightforward. You can go there. You can check out that free Pathfinder primer, as I said, see the starting points of the digital reader. You can follow us on social media. You can join our Discord server. You can also join our forums and start discussing things in our forums. The forums are the best place to share feedback, feature requests, or anything like that. So you can get to those from PathfinderNexus.com, or you can just go to forums.demiplane.com and get there. But you'll see me, buzzing about there and answering questions and engage in the community there as well. So those are all great places to start getting involved. And really, more than anything at this point, again, announcement versus launch. We haven't launched this thing yet. So if you are there and you want to help us make Pathfinder Nexus the best that it can possibly be, we certainly appreciate that help. And that's where you can come in and start engaging with the features and the tools as we introduce them and provide that feedback that's going to help us get there.
Incredibly exciting. Can't wait to check it out. Adam Bradford, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We will keep an eye on Pathfinder Nexus with great interest. Take care, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
In a world of heroes, villains, 6 British actors will come together to play Pathfinder. It's sort of like D&D, but also really not like D&D. Join Fulton.
I am the leader.
this decision!
Caragor,
Oh, I see you, Kenneth.
Velda,
Behold my arcane powers!
Shania,
Yes, of Crexicus!
M,
No, kill him.
and the Dungeon Master for an actual play podcast that takes adventure seriously. Available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and from DangerClubPodcast.com. Danger Club, let's roll.
God, doing that voice hurts.